All right, we're back for our daily college basketball best bets here for Monday, March 10th. We've got more conference tournament action as regular season action is wrapped up yesterday. Obviously, we're going to get the power conferences starting tomorrow with their tournaments. But today, some mid-majors, not the biggest slate to select from, but we found 5 best bets that we like for today. And folks, before we get into the best bets, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for some more daily college basketball best bets here on the channel. Later today, we will post our NBA predictions on the channel as well. I believe there are 14 games in the National Basketball Association today, so a lot of stuff to talk about. Join us in 3 hours for that video, and also make sure to go join us on Greedo Plays MMA as we posted our second video on that channel. It's our UFC Fight Night Vettori versus Dolidze 2 predictions. Make sure to go check that video out. Subscribe to Greedo Plays MMA. That is linked in the description down below. Subscribe to this channel as well as we now move on to the first of our 5 best bets for today. All conference tournament games, and at the very end of the video, we will talk about the remaining conference tournaments. I think there's only going to be 2 we don't talk about today. All right, let's start things off here in the Sun Belt. It's the Sun Belt Championship game at 4 o'clock in Pensacola, Florida, as we've got Arkansas State taking on the Troy Trojans. It is the 3 versus the 4 seed in this matchup, and we're going with Troy. I like Troy to get this one done. Arkansas State coming off of a huge victory yesterday, upsetting the number 1 seed in the conference in South Alabama, and for Troy, a complete beatdown on James Madison. I mean, that game started off, 11-0 in favor of Troy, and obviously it didn't go our way. We had the Dukes, but that makes me feel even more confident in picking Troy now to ultimately win the championship. I mean, unfortunately, again, we have to, lay off James Madison, who literally, the team was one of the worst performances of the season. Mark Freeman did literally everything. He scored 34 points out of the Dukes' 60. The rest of the team did not show up to play. Xavier Brown, 0 for 7 from three-point land, 2 for 14 from the field. Bryce Lindsey, 2 for 10 and 1 for 6 from the three-point line. What are we doing? But Troy showed out, man. They really did. 22 out of Tatum Connerway, Jackson Fields with 21, Thomas Dowd with 18, and they had a monster night shooting. Again, Fields, 5 for 8 from beyond the arc. Connerway, 2 for 3. Dowd, 2 for 4. They shot it lights out, and Troy really played a very good basketball game. It felt like, again, everything was just coming easy to Troy. Now, maybe that was a defensive, just a lapse on defense throughout the entire game from James Madison, but Troy was playing great defense. They were playing physical ball. It felt like James Madison was really working for a lot of their shots. And Troy just, again, they came easy to the Trojans, who have now built together a 5-game winning streak with, obviously, a win here, putting them in the NCAA tournament. Now, for Arkansas State, right, the wins in the Sun Belt tourney have been good for them. The wins over Marshall and South Alabama, both 3-point victories for the Red Wolves, as they are now obviously 1 game away from the tournament as well. Taryn Todd has been their guy all year long, averaging 15 points a game, but it was Pinion in the South Alabama game who led the Red Wolves in scoring with 23. Again, a very good win over South Alabama, a game that was close basically in the game's entirety, but again, Joseph Pinion did lead them in scoring in a game where their other leading scorers, from the other leading scorers throughout the season didn't really show up. So again, it was Pinion's night. He went 5 for 12 from beyond the arc, and really this is where this game is going to be won and lost with both these teams. It's going to be both of these teams in the Sun Belt's star shooters. Can they execute? And how is this game going to be managed on the defensive side of the ball as well? I think that's where Troy gets Arkansas State, man. I watched Troy play great defense against James Madison, and I'm going to be willing to put over Troy in this spot to the sense that I was really high on JMU. I had always said I thought JMU was going to win the conference, and obviously we were wrong about that. But here's the thing about Troy. They haven't played a competitive game yet in the Sun Belt tournament. Given they've only played 2 games like Arkansas State, both of them entered the tournament at the same time, obviously. But when Troy played ODU, who was on a run, they ran right through the Monarchs, and they destroyed James Madison as well. A 75-59 victory over Old Dominion and a 79-60 victory over James Madison, and that's where the difference is going to be made in this game. I think it's the defensive side of things here for the Troy Trojans. Now, when you look at how these 2 teams fared in the regular season, first matchup at home at Troy, Arkansas State won the game by 6. Second time out in Arkansas, Troy goes over there and wins the game by 1. So they've split on the regular season series, but I think where the difference is going to be made in this game is the defense out of the Troy Trojans. I've seen them lock down ODU and James Madison in back-to-back games. Connerway's been great, and really that entire shooting unit, their 3 stars in the perimeter have been really good in this entire tournament, and obviously it was apparent yesterday in the semifinal game over James Madison. So With all that being said, I do like the Troy Trojans to advance this to the NCAA tournament here with a victory. I think they beat Arkansas State, and again, I think the difference is made with their pressure and their hustle on the defensive side of the ball. The shots are going to fall, obviously, I think, for Troy as well, but I think the defense is what makes this game up for me. Give me the Troy Trojans to advance to March. Well, we are in March, but to March Madness. Give me the Troy Trojans to beat the Arkansas State Red Wolves. And they're underdogs, so we like it even more. Plus money for Troy, plus 105, we'll take it. Let's go on to our second best bet of the video, and we go to a matchup that will determine the winner of the SoCon. It is Furman and it is Wofford. I believe it's 6 versus 5. Yes, Wofford is the 6 seed. Furman is the 5 seed. A huge victory yesterday for both these squads. I mean, you start with Furman, who won a big game, obviously, upsetting the number 1 seed in Chattanooga, winning that game by 3 points, 80-77. And Wofford doing their job, obviously, yesterday over VMI. Now, personally, I thought that the Keydets were going to be able to play a closer game. It didn't, obviously, but it is what it is. It was a blowout victory for Wofford. VMI just fell behind really early, and they just weren't able to play at the pace that Wofford was playing at. I think this is where the Wofford run comes to an end, if I'm being honest with you guys. I think it does. I think Furman's the better basketball team. And I think they've shown it in this tournament already. Again, I am impressed with what Wofford has done. Obviously, I didn't think they were going to beat East Tennessee State. I thought the VMI game was going to be closer than it actually ended up being. But you compare that to what Furman's done in this tournament. They beat Samford, who was a very credible opponent, and they go to overtime and they take out the number 1 seed and the favorites to win the entire thing in Chattanooga. That's impressive, and the way that they've been doing it is really impressive as well. Furman's been really putting it on team scoring-wise, and you can credit that to their 2 top leading scorers, being PJ Smith and Nick Anderson. Smith in the regular season averaging 17 points a game, 17.5 points a game. Nick Anderson averaging 14.5 as well. For Wofford, right, I mean, they're gonna get the national headlines because of their center and Kyler Filowich, who does do the underhand Rick Barry granny free throw, which we did tell you about yesterday, and obviously went viral the day we told you about it. But anyways, because I saw that obviously earlier in the season. But Filowich is not a bad center. I think you might need to play hack-a-shack a little bit with him and just put him on the line, especially late in games. And honestly, I think Furman, if Wofford ever gets into the bonus in the first or second half, I think you have to hack him. He's a 30% free throw shooter. You can't let what East Tennessee let happen at the end of the first half when they played Wofford. Right? East Tennessee gives him the and one. Obviously, he misses the free throw, but don't let this guy shoot. Just send him to the free throw line. Again, he's a 30% shooter. If he hits his granny Rick Barry shot, just give him credit. But he's not going to most times. So I think, again, that's got to be a style of how to play against that guy, because Filowich is a good big. He is going to box you out. He is a physical guy down there. But again, you can avoid all that, at least his scoring threat and presence, by just hacking him. Now, the Terriers are led by Corey Tripp, who averages 14 points a game. Dylan and Justin Bailey have both been pretty good for them throughout the season as well. But Tripp, again, is their guy, and Filowich is obviously who they look to under the rim as well and as an interior threat. Now, I do want to mention the times these two teams played in the regular season. Very mixed results, right? The first matchup, at Furman was a blowout victory in favor of the Terriers, winning the game 81-62 on the road. But then they just played on March 1st, again 9 days ago, and that game was at Wofford, and Furman went on the road and beat them by 3. So again, like we mentioned with the previous game we talked about, this is a tightly contested matchup. And obviously that's why the odds are where they're at. It's a championship game. I like Furman, though. They're the higher seed, and obviously that's not why we're picking them, but I do think Furman's able to outscore Wofford in this game. I think they're going to. I think what we've seen so far out of this tournament, we've seen the scoring ability out of guys like PJ Smith, like Nick Anderson. I mean, hell, again, Anderson scoring 26 in the Wofford victory, PJ Smith scoring 25 in the Chattanooga victory. And again, it sucks. It's kind of how we have to compare teams, at least with their playoff runs so far in this tournament. But Furman has played the much tougher competition. And credit to Wofford. Again, they didn't get to pick their opponents. They got to the spot, obviously, that they're at. But they didn't have to play a team in UNC Greensboro who actually beat, I believe, both these teams this season. I know they beat Furman. A team in UNC Greensboro that beat both of these squads, right? Obviously, they got the Keydets instead. But I think Furman gets some. I was really impressed with that Chattanooga victory. They went into that game and, they went back and forth with Chattanooga, winning the game in overtime. That is more than an impressive victory. I like Furman to return to the NCAA tournament with a victory here over the Wofford Terriers. Obviously, in the process with their victory, I think they cover the 2.5 points. So give me Furman to be the champions of the SoCon this season. It's the first time, I believe, in 4 or 5 years that the number 1 seed has not won the SoCon. Obviously, that was ended with Furman's victory yesterday over Chattanooga, but they put a stamp on that by beating the Wofford Terriers and moving on again to the tournament with a win here tonight. We go on to our third best bet of the video, and we go to the Horizon League. So not a championship game in the Horizon. This is part of the Final Four, with the other side of the bracket being Cleveland State versus Youngstown State. But in this matchup, and our best bet that we like over in Indianapolis, Indiana at the Corteva Coliseum, we like Robert Morris to beat the Oakland Golden Grizzlies. I think Oakland's Cinderella run ends now. I just think it does, okay? It needs to end, is what I'm going to say. It needs to end. No. I think they got extremely lucky in their first 2 games, just matchup-wise. Well, okay. I'll give them credit in the Milwaukee victory. I thought Milwaukee was really good. I don't know how Oakland went on the road and won that game. Obviously, right, interstate matchup. They go over to Milwaukee and beat the Panthers. Great victory. Obviously, their first game. They haven't left the state of Michigan yet. No, Green Bay's in Wisconsin. No, because they played Green Bay in Michigan. Anyways, they got to play Green Bay and then Milwaukee. All right, Green Bay, we've known how fraudulent that team is. I mean, they won 3 games all season long, and obviously they did what they were supposed to do against Green Bay. The win over Milwaukee on the road on Thursday was extremely impressive. I just think the Cinderella run ends right now. Right, Robert Morris is the 1 seed. This conference gets reseeded, obviously. With Robert Morris being the 1, Oakland being the 6, and then Cleveland State and Youngstown and State playing in a 2-4 matchup tonight as well. And obviously now they go to a neutral site for the Final Four. They're all centered now in Indianapolis for the next 2 days. But Robert Morris, I just think, is the better basketball team. They've had success against Oakland this season, beating them twice, both at Robert Morris and in Michigan. In Oakland, right, the first matchup 79-71 on the road for Robert Morris. They won that game. Second matchup at Robert Morris, they beat Oakland by 2 points. Right, again, not crazy margins. But Robert Morris is on a run right now. The last time they lost a game was their loss at Wright State. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that's the last time we picked Robert Morris to win a basketball game. I could be wrong, but that's the first one that comes to the top of my head. It was when we had them to go to Wright State, and I believe they lost. I mean, I know they lost the game. I think we had them that night. Regardless, I like Robert Morris in this spot. I think they're the better team. I think this is just a Cinderella run out of Oakland. We've seen this team play time in and time out this season. I saw them, lay an egg in Hawaii over Christmas. Obviously, in Horizon League play, they weren't horrible. They were 11-9, but again, just a mediocre team that lost multiple games at home this season. They lost to Purdue Fort Wayne, losing to Youngstown, Northern Kentucky, Robert Morris twice, obviously losing to Wright State. And sure, I'll give them credit for winning in the postseason. Obviously, this is where it matters. 2 victories back-to-back against Green Bay and Milwaukee. Alan Mukeba has been really good for them in this tournament. He's a guy in the regular season who averaged 15 and 8. He is one of their main bigs, and he's done great in this tournament, obviously, right? 15-11 in the Green Bay victory, 21-7 in the Milwaukee victory. But I do think the Colonials are able to take him away tonight, and that's going to be as a result of their big as well, who I personally think is better than Mukeba, and that's going to be Alvaro Figueras. Probably butchered his last name, but I think Alvaro is the better big. He's averaging 14.5 and 9.5 this season. He's been great for the Colonials all year long. He's the sophomore for them out of Spain. He's been at RMU now 2 seasons. He's been really good, and I think he is going to win that matchup. And obviously, we're talking about Robert Morris. That means Cam Woods, their lead guy all year long. He's a player who's averaging 15 points a game this season. Woods scored 19 in the victory over Wright State in the quarterfinals. I like Robert Morris a lot. And again, their victory over Wright State was impressive as well, winning that game by 21 points. They have not lost a game since February 2nd. Again, they get their get back against Wright State because that was their last loss. And of course, they have beat Oakland twice this season as well, given they haven't played them since January. That last matchup was on January 25th, the first matchup being on January 4th as well. But I just think Robert Morris, the Colonials, are the better basketball team tonight. And again, I do like Alvaro to win the matchup down low against Mukeba. And again, Mukeba has been killing teams so far in this tournament, and he's been the best guy down the stretch of the season for the Golden Grizzlies. Obviously, a much more expanded role than at least we were seeing in Hawaii at the tail end of that tournament. at least in the Hawaii game, I remember on Christmas. But I think it's a great spot here for Robert Morris, and I love the spread as well. 2.5 points. It's a neutral site game, but sure, Robert Morris is the better basketball team, and I'd be very surprised if they don't cover the spread, and obviously we expect them to win as well. Give me Robert Morris to advance to the Horizon League final ever so quickly. We will look at now, we will look at the Horizon League tournament. And here it is, obviously. The Final Four, Robert Morris and Oakland. We expect Robert Morris to get there. Cleveland State versus Youngstown State. I believe Cleveland State's a slight favorite. I expect them to win as well. I don't feel as good about that game as I do for the 1-6 matchup that we just talked about. But yes, I would anticipate a Robert Morris versus Cleveland State championship. Initially, I thought potentially Milwaukee could get there, but obviously Oakland got them. I'll give the Golden Grizzlies credit, but I do expect tomorrow a championship game between Robert Morris and the Cleveland State Vikings. All right, let's move on now to our fourth best bet of the video, and we go to the CAA. Great conference, great game tonight. We get Charleston taking on UNC Wilmington. Obviously, all the games in the CAA tournament at the Care First Arena in Washington, D.C., and we are down to 4. On the other side of the bracket, Townsend versus Delaware. I'll get to that in a little bit. Not obviously the best bet today, but we'll talk about it some. And obviously this matchup, UNC Wilmington versus Charleston. Again, this is one of the matchups, and this is one of the teams in the UNC Wilmington Seahawks I've been talking about all season long. Time to put the money where the mouth's at. We're going with the Seahawks. I've always thought they're going to win this conference. I still think with the Final Four teams, I still think they're going to win. I get it. Townsend is the best team in the conference. I think UNC Wilmington is still better, at least record-wise, right? Townsend was the better team. UNC Wilmington lost to them in overtime, and obviously we'll get to that matchup tomorrow. I want to see that matchup because then we'll get UNC Wilmington at plus money tomorrow. If they're playing Delaware, they're probably going to be an 8.5-point favorite. Probably. They've beat Delaware twice this season, and the last game they played wasn't very competitive. Anyways, UNC Wilmington wins yesterday over Hampton. They get rid of the Pirates fairly easily. It was a 79-65 victory for UNC Wilmington. Again, just doing what we thought they were going to do to that Hampton team. Yes, they had lost at Hampton in February, but the CAA, man, it's a tough conference to go on the road and win with. Now at a neutral site, there is no home court advantage. Townsend is the closest thing we're going to get to that, obviously, with the school being in Maryland, but still, it's not on a college campus. It's a neutral site, and UNC Wilmington should be perfectly fine in this spot. Now they get the Charleston Cougars, a team that just survived yesterday. An overtime victory over Monmouth, winning it 79-78, barely escaping with the victory. We've talked about their big Ante Brozovic all year long. He was phenomenal in that game, playing 41 minutes for the Cougars, 22 points on 10 of 18 shooting, 8 boards in that game as well. He is a problem, and he's the guy, obviously, that UNC Wilmington is going to have to find a way to stop. Brozovic in the regular season averaging 18.5 and 8 boards a game. And it's either going to be, it's probably going to be Sean Moore is going to be tasked with dealing with him. No, it might be Kamari McGriff. No, it'll probably be Kamari McGriff. Sean Moore is a good defensive player, but no, he won't be able to deal with Brozovic down low. Yeah, I'll be Kamari McGriff, who has had a decent season for the Seahawks, averaging 11.5 points a game. He's 6'9", he's big enough, I think, to guard Brozovic, and that's obviously the matchup that we're going to have to focus in on tonight for UNC Wilmington, because I know this team's going to score. Again, Donovan Newby is a very good scorer for this team, averaging 14.5 points a game. Hell, Kamari McGriff in his own right, averaging 11.5 as well. Talked about Sean Moore earlier, who's a good 3-ish/4 for this team. But yeah, I mean, the closest thing they have to a 5 is going to be McGriff. So good luck dealing with the Croatian senior Ante Brozovic, who has been great. Obviously, again, we talked about his numbers earlier. He's been phenomenal in his senior season. But when we look at the matchups these two teams played in the regular season, the first one in Charleston, South Carolina was a dogfight. The Seahawks, though, go on the road and win that game. We just talked about how difficult it is to go on the road and win in the CAA. Well, UNC Wilmington went to Charleston and won. The second time around, though, again, I get it. UNC Wilmington is probably the toughest place to play in the entire conference. Charleston goes to North Carolina. They head up north, obviously, to take on the Seahawks, and they lose the game by 20 points. 86-66. It's a game that just got away from the Cougars. Now they get to play, instead of in the Carolinas, they get to go to the nation's capital to play. All right. Well, we've seen UNC Wilmington win in South Carolina. We saw them win in North Carolina. I think they win in Washington, D.C. as well. I think Charleston gives them a fight, don't get me wrong. But the first two matchups, again, were won by UNC Wilmington. I don't think the third game is any different. Sure, again, I understand it's hard to beat a team 3 times, but we saw it yesterday, hell right, American won their third matchup, obviously, of the season yesterday in the semifinals, going to the championship game, obviously, against Navy, which I believe is tomorrow. So shout out to American University. And we'll see the midshipmen get in the tournament. But, Brozovic was effectively shut down in the first two matchups against UNC Wilmington. He was. And the second game, obviously, he didn't do anything. And really, there was nothing of note Charleston did in that game. But even in the first game, too, Brozovic plays 35 minutes in the first matchup in Charleston, 16 points on 5 of 9 shooting, but again, he was just contained. UNC Wilmington found a way to stop the guy. In the second game, it was nothing out of him. 13 points on 4 of 9 shooting, played 32 minutes. UNC Wilmington's able to contain Brozovic. They win, and honestly, that's what I expect to happen in this game. Expect for Kamari McGriff to have a big night, and we like the UNC Wilmington Seahawks to go to the championship game of the CAA tournament, and that will take place, obviously, tomorrow, as here is the bracket. Obviously, on the other side, Townsend versus Delaware. Cinderella run for Delaware. They started in the first round, beat Stony Brook, beat the Campbell Camels, beat the Tribe of William and Mary yesterday. They scored 100 on them. Do they beat Townsend? I think there's a chance. That's why that game is not in this video, because I do think Delaware has capability of pulling off the upset. If I had to bet it, though, if the odds were even, I'm taking Townsend, but I want to see Delaware in that spot. Give me the Blue Hens versus the Seahawks. I'd like to see it. Again, I'd expect Townsend to be there. Regardless, I think UNC Wilmington's winning the conference. I think they're going dancing, and I think they're going to be a 13 seed. And I think they're going to give someone a big challenge in the NCAA tournament. Give me UNC Wilmington again to beat Charleston and cover the spread. We go on to our final best bet of the video, and we move now to the Big Sky Conference. Our final game is between Portland State and Idaho. Game's in Boise, which might make a difference. Obviously there's going to be both Idaho State and Idaho fans in the building tonight. Idaho State playing Montana State prior to this game. But give me Portland State. Give me Portland State to win and cover. I'm not going to say it's an easy matchup for them, but it's a very winnable game for Portland State. So, if you haven't been paying attention to the Big Sky Conference, the first round was Weber State, Sac State, Northern Arizona, Eastern Washington. Those two winners, obviously, in Weber and Northern Arizona, have to play on back-to-back days. They both lost yesterday to the 1 and 2 seeds, Northern Colorado and Montana, as expected. So today, it's the first games for the 4 and 5 seed, which is Idaho State and Montana State, and Portland State and Idaho. I think Portland State in this first matchup decimates the Idaho Vandals. I got to watch Idaho's last game in conference play this year. We actually had them to cover against Montana State. I believe they were, 7.5 point dogs. They ended up losing the game by 15 points. They showed me nothing in that basketball game. It really put me off from potentially picking them ever again. And even in this matchup, it's not like I'd take them to beat Portland State. Portland State beat them twice in the regular season. First matchup, Portland State in Portland beat them by 12. Second time around in Idaho, Portland State beat them by 7. Now again, we get it back in Idaho, not at the University of Idaho, but now in Boise. Portland State's a 4.5 point favorite. I don't think anything changes. I think Portland actually expands on that. I think Portland State's gotten better since those games. I can't say the same for Idaho. Idaho finished the season cold. Portland State finished the season on a 3-game winning streak, beating Montana State, beating Montana, who is the number 2 seed, the Grizzlies, in overtime by 3 points. And they barely got by Sac State, but they knew where they were going to be in the tournament. They knew they were a lock for a 3 seed, so who cares, right? The game didn't mean that much. It was their senior night. They found a way to win. That's all that matters. I don't think they have much trouble here with Idaho. I don't think it's a competitive game. We've seen Idaho fall off as the season went on. Maybe it was an ambitious pick taking them to beat Montana State, but now they've lost 3 of 4. They lost Northern Colorado like expected. They lose at home to Idaho State, their rivals. They beat Weber State in overtime by 2 points at home on their senior night. And again, they go to Bozeman and they get killed by the Montana State Bobcats. I'm not impressed with the Idaho Vandals. They have a non-scoring offense. You got Colton Mitchell, Christian Gonzalez, Jack Payne, Tyler Myris, and Tyler Lindhart. All those guys average about 10 points a game. Who's going to step up and be the main scorer? Who knows? But there's not one guy that sets himself apart from the pack. It's not like all these guys just play great fundamental offense where, we can just rely on the team as a whole to get it together. No, that's not how Idaho plays. They're not that great, okay? The Portland State Vikings are just the better basketball team as a whole. Jalen Henderson's been pretty good all year. Terry Miller's been good. Isaiah Johnson has been really good as well. I mean, these guys, again, it's a better team that the Vikings are putting out compared to Idaho. And I think, again, the big man play is going to be much better, obviously, on the side of Portland State. Trayvon Minot's been really good this year for them. These guys been averaging 8 and 8 this year. He's a senior, obviously. Plays like a center. He's pretty solid down there. I don't think Idaho has much to combat that. I mean, the closest thing to that is probably Julius Mims. Yeah, it's probably Julius Mims, who does kind of act as their center. I think Trayvon Minot's better. That's my hot take there. I think Portland State dominates the game. I think they're the much better scoring team. And again, I think the Vandals kind of have a non-scoring offense that they put out there. So give me Portland State. I like the Vikings to win this game at home, and I like them to advance now to the Final Four of the Big Sky Conference tomorrow, where they will take on the Montana Grizzlies, a team that they just beat a week ago in overtime. I think it's a big matchup, and it's a very winnable game for the Vikings tomorrow night. So give me Portland State to advance real quickly before, again, we move on to our final two conferences today. But obviously this ends the best bets. Let's take a look at the Big Sky Conference, and here it is. Conference tournament. Final four again, Northern Colorado, Montana, Portland State, obviously we have playing Montana, and likely, I don't know, the Idaho State-Montana State game, I've said it before, it's just you could flip a coin. Flip a coin, and that'll tell you who's going to win that. Give me Idaho State. Barely give me Idaho State. I'll take Idaho State to win that game. From Northern Colorado and Idaho State, I think Northern Colorado gets in the championship game. Portland State, Montana, I think it's a toss-up. I'll ever so slightly go Montana, and then again, we've been saying Northern Colorado, Montana championship game with Northern Colorado winning. That's still what I think. Southland Conference. Only 2 games today. Wanted to pick the Northwestern State Texas A&M Corpus Christi game, but as of recording at 1:30 in the morning, there are no odds for that game. Can't find them. I wanted Texas A&M Corpus Christi on the spread. I think they're going to be close to even, I think. I don't know. They're better than Northwestern State. They're going to win that game. They're the lower seed. They will still win. Nichols versus Incarnate Word. I'm disappointed Southeastern Louisiana could not complete the comeback yesterday. Nichols will beat Incarnate Word. Okay, so now A&M Corpus Christi versus McNeese. Incarnate Word Lamar. Nichols Lamar. It doesn't matter if McNeese is winning the tournament. All right, probably. Maybe the Islanders of Texas A&M Corpus Christi give them a fight. I'm not really thinking it. Final conference today, the West Coast. Shout out to Pepperdine, man. The Waves. Wow. What a run. Portland, Oregon State, and then now they have beat the Santa Clara Broncos when they were 16.5-point dogs yesterday. Very surprising, not going to lie. I thought Pepperdine was out in the first round. And in the first half of their game against Portland, it looked like they were going to be out. It looked like the Pilots were beating them in that game. It's coming to an end tonight. They're going to lose to St. Mary's. I don't care what magic they have in them. I thought about picking it. I thought about going St. Mary's minus 20.5. But that's one of those games where it's like, all right, so I'm not picking it. St. Mary's will win. But that's why I'm not picking it, because it's one of those games where St. Mary's hypothetically could actually lose that game. They could. I don't think they will. But what's the motivation for St. Mary's to win this thing? Are you in the West Coast Conference? That's great. They know they're in the tournament. Pepperdine is playing with everything that they have. Their season's on the line, their college basketball careers are on the line. Again, St. Mary's should win, but Pepperdine's going to put up a fight. I don't know. 20.5. I don't want to. I would never pick against St. Mary's at this point in time, because again, I think St. Mary's is probably going to the Elite Eight. Personally, I just think their defense is that great. But I don't know. That's why I stayed away from it. Gonzaga, San Francisco. We've seen Zaga beat them twice. I don't think San Francisco has a shot this time around. San Francisco tried to blow 2 leads against Washington State yesterday. They still won, obviously. I'd expect a Zaga St. Mary's championship game. Maybe Pepperdine doesn't have a chance. I'd kind of like to see the Waves win, but that wouldn't help my case for St. Mary's Elite Eight. So, nah. Give me the Gales and Zaga in the championship tomorrow. Anyways, folks, that will do it for our 5 best bets for college basketball here today. Make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for more. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy the video. Make sure to comment if you do disagree with any of the picks. We'll be back tomorrow again for more daily college basketball best bets. And make sure to join us in a couple hours for our NBA predictions as well. And make sure to join us on Greedo Plays MMA for our second predictions video over there with Marvin Vittori and Roman Dolidze in the main event. Folks, thank y'all for watching. Make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for more. Comment if you do disagree with any of the picks. Thank y'all for watching, and Mamba forever.